with varying success. Like some of them are. Hey everyone, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I am actually going to go over a bunch of different chatty things. So we're talking reflections, goals, stats, and a couple of small updates concerning my TBR, my to be read books, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna do all of that while getting ready. I am actually quite excited. I've been thinking about this video for a long time, and I was going back and forth as to whether I wanted to talk about, I don't know, to do the video. Like, I didn't know for sure if I wanted to do this video. And now that I'm here and now that I'm doing it, I'm excited. I am excited to give you some reflections on how I thought 2023 went, the way I'm looking forward, the way I'm looking towards the future, and all of that. So if you're new to my channel, then hi. And I'm gonna do all of that with makeup, putting makeup on. So if you're new to my channel, then hi, welcome. My name is Shelly, and you really got a bit of an earful of what this channel is all about. I really love books and reading. I really adore talking about my reading. I have so many opinions, and I feel very passionately about what I read. I think deeply about what I read, or at least I try to, with whatever brain space I have left after, all my daily life, being a teacher, being a mother and a wife, and all of that. So this is just like my passion. This is my passion project, and the channel in a lot of ways is the manifestation of the passion project in my heart that I have about books and reading and all of that. So if you are new and you like the vibe after all of that, then I would encourage you to subscribe and stick around. And without any, like the video if you please, I guess. And what else do people say? I think that's it. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. I really can't go any further. I'm gonna really try not to cry, but I can't go any further without just talking about the loss that we had on BookTube with Jennifer Brooks. I really admired her. I really admired the way that she read and the way that she talked about books. She read so widely. In the same video from her, you could get a young adult romance fantasy recommendation, and something from an epic poem or an ancient classic. And that was just so emblematic of her reading and her channel and her, she really just talked about all the things that she adored. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what drew so many people to her. And just knowing that she's not here anymore and thinking about her mom, my heart breaks. My heart just breaks. And I know that her influence in terms of the way that she inspired people to read, the way that she inspired me to talk about books with unabashed joy and passion, and her recommendations, they're gonna live on. They're gonna continue to live on and serve as a wonderful remembrance of her. But it's just one of those things that I just don't think I could go. I haven't sat down and talked to y'all since the news of her passing has come to BookTube, and I just really wanted to take a moment on my channel as someone, I wanted to take a moment within myself and with you all, just saying, like, she was so deeply loved, and she's gonna be missed so much. But if I continue to talk, I will cry. So I'm not gonna continue to talk about it. Yeah, she was so loved. All right, so okay, that was the start of 2024. That news really hit BookTube, and I think it's shaken a lot of us. And anyways, we're gonna go. So 2023, I had, oh my gosh, I'm getting stuff. I'm using the back of my hand as a palette, and I don't even think I'm totally ready, because usually I have my computer to talk about stats, and I don't even have my computer near me. So, I got to go grab that when I talk about stats. We're not talking about that now. Get focused. Get focused, Shelly. So in 2023, I had 3 goals. They were low-key goals. They were low-key goals. And one of which is a phrase for the year or a word of the year. But mine was more of a phrase. It had 2 parts to it. And I didn't share with a lot of people. I really kept it close to me and my heart, because sometimes when I do that, when I work on it in private and it means a lot to me, but I don't mind sharing now that the year is over. So my phrase or concept for the year was that I really wanted to protect my peace. I'm one of those people who can start to spiral. In my head, like anxiety spiral. And what I mean by that is it's not a trigger necessarily, but perhaps something will happen. This is usually how my spiral happens. Something will overwhelm me, whether it be I'm embarrassed in a public interaction, in a social interaction, I feel embarrassed. I feel my own shyness. My shyness will get the better of me. I'm caught off guard. Often it happens, I feel like I'm in trouble. That's one of my things. I'm not going to go too deeply into it. So something happens. Typically it's like a social thing. Typically I'm caught off guard. Or I already have like a high level of anxiety or feeling anxious about the social interaction. And something will kind of happen and I'll feel really embarrassed or overwhelmed. And from there, that's when I start to spiral. So then I'll think that people are talking about me. I'll start to think that people will think the worst of me. That's a big one. And what's interesting, I just talked about this with my sister, so it's fresh on my mind about spiraling, And what would happen is that I would start to feel a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And the thing is that, and I would start to think that people are saying things about me, or talking about me behind my back, or saying terrible things about me. And what's so funny, or what's interesting about this spiral, is that I have known myself for all of the days of my life. Like, I live with myself. And so I, in my own imagination, can come up with 10,000 more terrible, awful things that anyone in the world could think of. And it would be more true. Meaning that if someone was gossiping about me, they would be gossiping about an aspect of my life. Only knowing certain parts of me, or they would just be straight lies. But for me, I know all of the things that I've done. I know all of the bad things I've done. I know all of the good things that I've done. I know all of the things, all of the stuff about me that I can remember, things that I felt shame about, all the stuff. So when I start to spiral and I think that other people are talking about me, I'm using my knowledge about me, the things that I feel about me, in order to suck myself into the hole. I'll replay interactions in my mind. Oh my gosh, I'm really going on and on. I'm spiraling while I'm talking about spiraling. I'm reining it back in because I'm actually not spiraling. I just think that I'm having a difficult time talking about what it feels like to start to really be hard on oneself and to start to feel that sense of shame, that sense of where one is just really starting to nitpick. When I'm nitpicking my own actions, I'm nitpicking about the interactions I'm having with others, I start to feel shy, and I go within myself and I replay these interactions over and over and over in my head, and I can't get out of the loop. And that's what the spiral is. And I knew at the end of 2022 that I was entering the work field again. And I knew that I wanted to have a better relationship between myself and work. And I set out knowing that. And so I told myself that I wanted to protect my peace this year. And that was really important to me, to protect the way that protect the the way that I have joy, like I spread joy in this world, the way that I bring joy, and to not wallow in the sense of something is wrong with me. I feel bad about myself. I'm feeling bad about myself, and so on. And so I set out that I wanted to protect my peace, that I didn't want an interaction or that something to cause me to lose sleep for multiple nights, to feel overwhelmed or just feel just awful, right? Feel bad for days and weeks and months at a time, and to get myself caught in these spirals where I just feel terrible. Weirdly, YouTube has really helped with my perception of my own self, because I see myself, I edit myself back. I actually didn't know. Wow, we're really getting deep here, but I actually didn't know that I came off the way that I came off. I didn't know that I come off as sweet and as enthusiastic as I do. I had no idea. I really had no idea. I didn't know that, like, a term that people would use for me is sweet. I wouldn't have ever thought that before, but it also just, my relationship with myself has been a work in progress. And so now it's kind of interesting, because there are some things that through YouTube and editing myself and talking to a camera and talking to you all and getting your reaction to me has revealed and been so illuminating for me that, I can kind of, it helps me carry myself in the world, through the world, with a bit more like confidence and knowing myself a bit more, probably because I spend a lot of time with myself editing videos. You all get it. So I was set out to protect my peace this year and not to stay up all night or have like worry all night about something. And I really feel like I accomplished that this year. A lot of it is knowing that knowing that I'm about to spiral, having certain things that I do and certain people that I talk to about the thing that is worrying me. And honestly, just continuing to remind myself to make everything not a mountain, but to keep it a molehill, to keep everything manageable and in perspective, and to really remind myself that most people out there in this world don't think bad of me, and that they're not gossiping about me. And if it is, it's their problem and not mine. Oh, just like keeping a lot of things in perspective in order to make sure that I have a peaceful life. And boy, that has really worked. I really don't know what I look like right now. I don't have a mirror in front of me. I mean, I have one right over there. It was just really great to know that the protecting my peace, that phrase, was my focus for the year. I feel like it was really a wonderful focus. I felt like it helped me keep my worry in check. It helped me make sure that I maintained perspective. And I am just so grateful to my past self for setting out to have that goal, have that phrase this year, because I can tell that it has been really good, really, really good. And I'm just so grateful for that. Okay, let's move on. I'm gonna take my hair down. I'm gonna put in some earrings, check on the face, and then we'll move on. So protecting my peace was the big concept for the year. The next two were low-key and had to do more with reading rather than my personal life. They were, I wanted to stop watching, mostly I wanted to stop watching TV in 2023. A lot of this was that I knew that I was going back into the workforce. I'm a teacher, and so I started teaching again, and I had the habit of watching TV at the end of the evening to, like, more or less to fall asleep, or just to relax and get sleepy enough to go to sleep. And I didn't really love that. I was using 20, 30, 40, about from 20 to 40 minutes at night watching television. It wasn't giving me a lot of joy to watch television, and I wanted to swap that habit out of TV watching to television watching in the evening to reading in the evening. And indeed, it took a little while to start the habit, but definitely by August. And I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself. It was something that I slowly worked at throughout the year. And what would happen is that I would finish watching a show, and if I didn't know what to watch next, I didn't force myself to drum up feelings, look for something that sparked an interest, try out the pilot, and, assess whether I wanted to continue, and then kind of, root around, essentially, to find something to watch until I found it, and then that would be my show for the next 2 to 3 months, and then having the cycle start up all over again. So I indeed watched several things this year, but there were long gaps in between, and it doesn't mean that I never want to watch something again. I actually am looking forward to summer when I have a little more time, and maybe I will start a show that I've been wanting to watch that's been on the back of my mind to start or to try out. And I do catch some things because my husband still watches all the TV. So I catch episodes of this and that here and there. Sometimes we'll watch something around or at dinner time as just something that we can all kind of quiet ourselves down and calm, or that we can talk about, like something to focus on and talk about while we're having dinner or having a meal, even lunch on like the weekends. So it's not that I don't watch any television, it's just that I don't spend a lot of time, I don't spend a lot of energy towards television, choosing, watching, it's not a huge feature in my life, and it's become less and less as 23 continued, and I really did stop watching television at like around August when I returned to work after having summer break. For school. So I had summer break, and then, I had summer break, and then when I returned to work, I just really kind of cut it out of my life. And now I can really confidently say that I'm just someone that doesn't watch TV at all. My husband got me this beautiful Pat McGrath, I feel so fancy, holiday collection palette, and I've been really loving it. So anyways, here's what I'm using on for color cosmetics on my face and eyes. So, and if you're a TV watcher, and even my husband is, there's no judgment. It was just it was totally a personal decision of something that I've been wanting to do, and I'm so glad that I finally incorporated it into my life. The no more television watching, essentially, for me, and I'm so glad about it. Then I also had a very low-key project of reading 23 classics in 2023. And I indeed read 24 classics this year, or in 2023. I think I read 24 or 25 classics in 2023. And so that was a total success. It's always kind of a low-key project that I'm working on, and I'm so glad that I did. It helped me keep myself in the mindset of picking up classics more often than not. And I am just, it always makes me feel good when I'm reading something that, not that all classics are like worth reading or worth one's time. Only you can decide what's worth your time or what's not. And I find that when I read classics, I just really get a lot out of them. There, of course, were books that didn't work for me, books that I wish I hadn't read and spent my time with. There's all of that. But then I also got my favorite read of the year because I read a classic, and it was Middlemarch by George Eliot. Most incredible, brilliant, amazing. I love that book so much. Wow, 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 wow. So, I get a lot out of that project every year. So those were my goals for 2023. Let's go into goals for 2024. Again, I have a word for the year or a phrase for the year for 2024, but I don't want to share that until the end, until I'm done. But I have it written down, and I'm very excited about it and all that. But since I'm not sharing it, I'm not going to dwell on it. I also have a low-key reading project. My low-key reading project is the 10 classics for 2023 and the 10 nonfiction for 2023. Of course, I don't know. I have so many books. We're going to get into that in another section. But in terms of goals, I have just a gorgeous collection of books that I really want to read. And I want to motivate myself to pick up the books I wouldn't normally pick up. So what I would tend to gravitate towards naturally as a reader is I tend to gravitate towards things that are like just genre specific. I want to read like fun stuff. I want sort of not light and fluffy. Even literary fiction to me is fun, but I'll want to read contemporary, new release type things. That's what I naturally gravitate towards. And so when I put projects into place, like to read more nonfiction books or to read classics, or I've done things where I want to read a bit more poetry in a month, and I'll set out to do that. It's because I don't normally gravitate towards those styles, formats, genres, and yet I get so much out of them when I do read it. So I am hoping that with these low-key projects that I'll actually read more than the 10, and that the 10 will help just keep in my mind's eye, keep in my consciousness that I do indeed love to read nonfiction books. I love to read classics. So I know it's kind of an interesting thing because I do read I do share my reading on here, and often I do mention classics and nonfiction, but even in my own self, I feel like I could do just a little bit better. And so this is me trying to do a little bit better. So it seems like I have a word of the year, which is an internal, private, personal project. I have a low-key reading project, which for me this last year was 23 classics in 2023. This year is the 10 nonfiction and the 10 classics. And then I have something related to reading that's not directly reading books or anything like that, but it's like it's related to reading. So last year was no TV in 2023, and this year I really want to stop growing my TBR. I want to stop growing it. I'm tired of adding books to my TBR. I love buying books, and I buy with the intent to read. Like I have such a small collection of books that I have that are just there for looks, or there because I want to, I want to own them. I have small sections in my library that are there mostly like what I would consider for looks. But for the most part, I want to read the books that I own. And so I actually did some reorganization, and this is more of a adjacent to the project Shelf Aware. I didn't know how I wanted that project to unfold, but I did want to make myself more aware of what's on my shelves and what's bringing me joy. And I decided to make this room and these shelves behind me my TBR, my physical unread books area. I had to switch something out. My camera just randomly stopped recording. So we're back again. So what I was saying is that I decided to make this whole room my to be read room. Every book in this space are books that I want to read, including the books in the back right there. I moved out all of my decorative reference, those kinds of books. I moved out books that I don't consider my books. They may have been gifts that I don't necessarily want to sit down and read. I might read them one day, but then it's like it will just get added to the TBR and then taken off the TBR because I will have wanted to read it and then read it. But in the room, this room represents the books I want to read, truly actively want to read. And I even unhauled some. So now that I have everything in the same room, I recounted the books. And I thought I had 236 unread books. It looks like I have more like 260. 260. I'm a mess over here, y'all. So I really need to stop. I desperately need to stop buying books. No, I don't need to stop buying books. I need to stop adding to my physical TBR. I don't mind if I buy books. I'm not going to shame myself for book buying. I just know that I don't want it to grow. I want to read the books that I have bought. I want to make this space a joyful area of books that I can like truly shop my shelves. They're books that are picked for me. It's like I have this beautiful library. I mean, nobody expects the librarian to have read, I mean, if you're young or I don't know, nobody expects the librarian at one's local library to have read everything on those shelves. That is not an expectation. And so I'm not expecting myself to read I don't want a 0 TBR. However, I think I've gotten to the point where I have too many unread books on my shelves, or I have enough. It is enough. And so I don't want to continue to add. Even in the 260, in that process, I had grabbed about 7 or 8 or 9 books that I don't want anymore, that I don't really have an interest in reading, and those are being unhauled. So I think I had close to 270. How I missed 40 bucks, I don't know. I probably wanted to turn a blind eye to those 40 bucks because I really didn't want to come to terms with how many books are on my to be read shelf. So I know that there are popular projects out there in order to get one to read what's on their shelves. For me, I think the concept that feels right to me is that I don't want to add anymore. I'm not working to get it down. I think that I'm just going to take it one step at a time, and the first step is to stop adding to my TBR. Having said that, there are a couple of books that I need to get before book club reads and such, but for the most part, I need a halt on the book buying moment. So I am glad that I'm putting it out there with you all, and I want to continue to check in with myself in this project. And to continue to be shelf aware of what's on my shelves and how I feel about what's on my shelves, continue to unhaul the books that are not giving me joy, books that I may have started that I am deceiving myself that I'm going to pick up again. I want to just, try books, unhaul them. I want to keep this project in mind, which is what the whole project is about. So in terms of like another facet or growing part of my project Shelf Aware is to, not grow my TBR. I think that's a nice encompassing moment. So again, all the books that are behind me and on these shelves are my current to be read pile. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have these books in my collection that I can read and that I'm excited to read and to dive in more with the books that I have. So that's it. There we go. That was like the tough one for me to talk about. And now I'm going to get my computer for some stats, okay? Some stats. So I have a couple of ways of recording what I've read. According to my own accounting of what I've read, I read 212 books. Now, before you're too impressed with me, I want you to know that those 212 books, 112 of them were children's books, children's picture books. I had set out at the beginning of the year in 2023 that I was going to decide to count picture books as a book read. And I'm so glad that I did because in a lot of ways I felt super motivated to pick up picture books. And my goal for the year was to read 200 books, knowing that about 100, if not more than 100 of them, was going to be picture books, children's picture books, which is a huge part of my reading. I like to think about illustrated books in general. I was about to turn Southern right there. And I just wanted to keep good track of the children's books that I read. And in a lot of ways, I think keeping track made me, and Lindy from Lindy's Magpie Reads mentioned this, and she was saying keeping track and counting it as a book read is in a lot of ways saying that the book is important to you. And that absolutely was true. It made me not to be like, oh, I just read blah, 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 blah of children's books. It actually made me, in my own consciousness, say that this is important reading to me. And it really is. I love picture books. I review tons and tons of picture books on my channel. I don't always keep it consistent. It's always kind of a randomness as to when I review the picture books, but I think I did more picture book videos in 2023 than I've done in all my time on BookTube. Like I just did so many picture book reviews and all of that. So 212 books is what I read, and about 112 of them were picture books. So about 100 of them were what I would consider like adult, young adult, middle grade fiction, all that kind of jazz were those books. Yeah, and so I read non-picture books. I read about 100. Oh my gosh, we're already getting into the weeds, and I'm not even I'm barely talking about my stats. However, when I look at Goodreads, not Goodreads, when I look at Storygraph, when I have it all in, it says that I read 194. I don't know where the data got mixed up in, but we're gonna just go through these. We're gonna go through these Storygraph stats, and just know that like 20 or so of my books, like 20 or so of my books are not included in this accounting. All right, in terms of moods, not surprisingly, the number one at 73 books is lighthearted. I'm guessing it's because I read a lot of children's books, and children's books are slotted as lighthearted. Similarly, my next largest piece of the pie is adventurous, and then the next is reflective. Actually, let's see what they deem as reflective. Oh, okay. So oh wow. Okay. So in terms of reflective, they have My Fourth Time We Drowned by Sally Hayden, which is a book that I read, a nonfiction book that I read for the BookTube Prize. We have Women Talking, which was my favorite contemporary fiction book that I read in 2023. The Waves, which was a graphic novel that I read because of a booktuber here, Gemma of Gem of Books, recommended The Waves. And yes, it is a very reflective, thoughtful book. Aiding and Abetting, reflective. Maybe I disagree with that. That is more of a hilarious romp, but that's just me. Oh, and then yeah, like A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr, Oedipus the King, Saint Joan, which was a play that I read. Okay, so I don't quibble over that. And then the next is emotional. The next biggest piece of the pie is emotional. And again, we're seeing some of the same titles pop up. So it's going to be My Fourth Time We Drowned by Sally Hayden, Women Talking, The Song of the Cell, The Waves, emotion, book lovers. Well, I guess it could be like happy emotions, right? Like it's promoting like a lightheartedness in the reader. Book lovers, We Were the Mulvaneys. I despise that book. Okay, so I can see where they're getting emotional. Oh, Middlemarch is emotional. It is emotional. It made me cry. And not necessarily for sad reasons. It really was a hard-hitting, it was a deep book. It was a deep, thoughtful book. And then the next three pieces of the pie in descending order, in smaller and small, like getting smaller and smaller, is dark, and then mysterious, and then funny. Interesting. I wonder what they're saying is funny. Oh, my One Piece, the One Piece reading that I have been doing. Oh, the Edward St. Auburn book? No, that is not a funny book. My best friend's Exorcism, very funny. 84 Charing Cross Road, funny. Yes. Okay, well, Northanger Abbey. Yeah, that one is funny too. Okay, not too many quibbles there, but you know, it's, I was like, what is happening at first? Okay, let's think. The next, for pacing, again, I feel like it's going to be quite off because of children's books and such, but it's saying that 42% of my pacing preferences are medium paced. 31% is slow. So I read more slow-paced books than I read fast-paced books, and that is actually in line with my heart. I like slow-paced books. I really do. I like when they're methodical and thoughtful. I'm not saying that I want something to drag. Or that I want it to be boring. I just don't mind if not a lot happens, if they're keeping me engaged in other ways. Like maybe the setting is really beautiful. Maybe the characters are really well explored and really thoughtful, and so on and so forth. Let's think. Okay, so my next stat is going to be page number. 76% is less than 300 pages. I am not surprised by that because, again, I did tons and tons and tons of children's books reading. However, 17% was between 17% was between 300 pages and 499 pages. I read 13 books that were over 500 pages, and that included The Woman They Could Not Silence, Dark Fire, which is the second book in the C.J. Sanson Shard Lake series, the Shard Lake series by C.J. Sanson, Middlemarch by George Eliot, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, The January 6th Report, which is a document that the U.S. government put out, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, which came in at 992 pages, at least the edition that they have, The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory, The Whole Bone Collection by Jeff Smith, Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese, Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese, Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese, and The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Interestingly, I read 2 Verghese books that were over 500 pages, and I read 2 Tartt books that were over 500 pages. And the one by far that was the longest, was 1,332 pages, Bone by Jeff Smith. If you're wanting to know the second longest book I read, it was Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry at 992 pages. Now, fiction and nonfiction, I read more nonfiction than I really gave myself credit for. If you would have asked me, I would have said I read about, 10, 12. It's saying that I read 28 nonfiction books. So let me see if there's any surprises on here. The Napping House is not nonfiction, okay? No. Some of them are a little iffy in terms of nonfiction. The picture books, I wouldn't count those. So I actually think my accounting of, I think I read maybe more like 20 or maybe even less, like 17 nonfiction books, which is more in line with what I thought. Okay, in terms of genres, it says that children is my most read genre. I'm not surprised. Next is fantasy. Y'all, what? Fantasy? Okay, they're saying One Piece is fantasy, which is true. I read, The Priory of the Orange Tree, of course. There's several picture books. Oh yeah, I did read A Court of Thorns and Roses. Yeah, so I see a lot of the graphic novels or the manga that I'm picking up is termed fantasy. So that makes sense. Okay, I'm not as mad at it. The next is literary at 23. And indeed, I do have, hopefully I'm giving you like a nice little scroll of my literary reads, because I did read quite a few of them. And yeah, I mean, with varying success. Like some of them are quite successful and some of them were not. Oh, and then the next is historical at 21 reads. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I did read quite a few historical, set not in our day and age. The Jewel in the Crown. I did not talk about that book enough this year, by Paul Scott. It took me a long time. I think I was reading it in between getting sick, and so I don't necessarily associate that book with good thoughts, but I did quite like it, and it really deserves more credit on my channel than I have been giving it. Okay, we're gonna move on. We're not really gonna talk about tags. I don't really care. Format, that's probably off. Okay, most read authors. Eiichiro Oda is going to be my most read author. I read 8 of his manga series in December. I read 8 volumes of One Piece in December. And then my next read author at 5 books is Elizabeth George, because I have been loving her Lindley series. I'm actually reading the next installment in it right now. And then I read a bunch of books by Carson Ellis, who is a picture book author and illustrator. I did a whole in-depth video on her books. And then also Kaya Doi, which I ended up not really talking about. It's again another picture book author and illustrator who I really enjoyed, and I read like her whole set of books. But when authors sometimes have a set of matching books, like they obviously go together and they're doing the same thing, as you can imagine as an adult, I find it very repetitious after a while. So I think really the first book or the first 2 or 3 would have been absolutely fine in terms of like satiating my reading and curiosity of this illustrator and author. But I instead read all of what she owned, and that was 5, or what she had produced that was at my library. Next, I read the Edward St. Aubyn books. I read 4 of his books, and then 3 Sophocles plays. So, and then we're getting down to like just people I've read 2 of. So yeah, those I think were the biggest heavy hitters. And then I'll show you a graph, though I don't know if it's really that accurate. I'll show you a graph of pages versus books read. It looks like in the summer I read less books but more pages. So I read chunkier books in the summer, which doesn't surprise me. And I read shorter books early in the year, and it was probably because I was trying to figure out a new routine, and I was just grabbing for things that would give me a quick like boost of like, I read it, I feel good. So, and then I seem to even out starting in September. So starting in September, I feel like September, October, November, December, I start to really kind of even out my reading, and we have pretty close like pages and books read. They kind of stay pretty close in line with one another. And that is really it. So those were my stats. I know I kind of chatted about, I'm opening, I don't know. This is probably not good just to leave your mascara wand out as you hold forth about the stats of books that you read, but that's what happens on my channel. And I think I'm actually done with the look, and I quite like it. Again, those are stats based off of 194 books versus the 212 that I read, that I accounted for. But yeah, that's it. That's really it. Tell me, I'll leave a pinned comment down below asking like, tell me some of your stats. Like, how many books did you read? Did you gravitate more towards longer books or shorter books? I think I had a wonderful balance of long and short books, considering that I read 13 that were over 500 pages in a year in which I worked full time and I was really busy. And I'm just glad that I got so many like long books under my belt. I know for some people, they read only all long books, and but in terms of me and my reading life, I'm really excited about what I have read and who I've read from and the accounting of children's books. This year, I guess I should say, this year my goal is set at far lower. Just because I did notice in December, I was pushing myself to read more children's books because I wanted to finish my goal of 200 books. So it did push me a little bit, but I really don't like to be pushed. So I only set my goal to 100, and I think that's perfect. And my goal, my overarching big goal, is to have fun with my reading. And I know I'm putting this in at the very last second, but that's really the heart of what I want from my reading. I want to enjoy it. I want to have fun. I want it to be fantastic. And I'm already having a wonderful reading month. It's been great. So that's it from me. Tell me some of your stats, maybe some of your goals for this year, and maybe some reflections on how last year went. Again, I'll leave a pinned comment down below so that you don't have to come to this very last moment in the video for me to ask it. But anyhow, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!